All right. So welcome back. We're going to jump into the lecture and yeah, let's get started. Okay, let's see what we got here. So we're looking here at what about the internet, right? We talked about that at the end. It doesn't have any national borders, no political borders. How does it deal with that? Whose laws are going to govern it, and yeah, which jurisdiction is going to take place. So when we look at it, we talk about a number of things come to mind really quickly that we need to consider. Online gambling that immediately violates Sharia law, right? Domain names, right? You talk about intellectual property. Who's going to have www.cnbc if CNBC wasn't the first to register it? Maybe with a .ca at the end for Canada, or taxes. Whose taxes are we even going to pay? And the list goes on and on. These are problems that need to be solved, right? We're just not sure what the solutions are at this point. And we talked about this in class. Elon Musk taking on Twitter. This could have a lot of interesting things that happens based on how the world's going to perceive this. What's going to happen in regards to free speech? Obviously, different countries have different laws about this. It should be very interesting for everybody how it plays out on a global scale. And we wondered if suddenly, some countries might see less use in Twitter. Some countries might see an increased use in it. It had a lot of global implications in the class. Thought it was a lot of fun to talk about. So then we asked this question, right? Why private, right? What could this mean globally or for countries of interest? And people had different ideas. It was a good discussion. We have this video here that talks about Google and China. What forced Google out of China? That was really an interesting video. Definitely jump into the Moodle and the PowerPoint. You can see that video. I've actually decided not to upload the videos into the Moodle. Instead, they're in the PowerPoint presentation, which is what I'm going through here. So if you'd like to watch it, just jump into the PowerPoint, watch the video. You'll be good to go. Okay. All right. And so, would China's grip on the internet stop at Google? So, Google in the video you'll find out was left China because of a hack that was led within China, and numerous things that they were saying they were going to have to forfeit the freedom of speech. They had been censoring themselves for so long, and then said they were going to stop doing that after the hack. And next thing you know, they're kind of out of China. So the question then after this video was, would China's grip on the internet stop at Google? And really nobody thought so. We talked about the facial recognition software that's in China and all the other things that we imagine would be taking place. Cyber squatting was something that came up in the class that we talked about, and that's this idea that someone can actually just buy a domain name, a URL, and just sit on it until someone's willing to pay for more. And two really famous ones, themortgage.com, which sold for $500,000, or www.business.com, sold for $7.5 million. And then we just saw if anyone in class was familiar with cyber squatting and what was involved. And then we talked about, is this an online equivalent to the McDonald's Arches story in Japan? And one thing that came up was the eBay. So in Canada, it's .ca at the end, and someone actually purchased the web address www.ebay.ca, and that person was not eBay. And so when eBay came into Canada, they had to actually do www.ca.ebay.com. Definitely a frustration, and clearly somebody that could compete with eBay or operate under the mask of being eBay when not truly that. So definitely can damage eBay's reputation, but also bring about a lot of competitive edge for someone who's not truly being transparent there. All right, so we had this group question that we asked, what are ways the internet can be used to damage a company's brand or reputation? And this was a hilarious discussion. Some students had some really strong opinions on how they should go about damaging a company's reputation. Some people had very specific thoughts on specific companies. It was a great discussion. And that was one of the things we talked about. And then we looked at walmartsucks.org, which is now defunct, but we also have people of Walmart. So clearly the brand being damaged by activity being done online, and that can certainly happen. When we move into online sales taxes, who gets them? This cartoon's kind of funny. Which state would get a sales tax, which country would get sales tax, things like that. And it's a big topic there of taxes and jurisdictions and disputes and contracts. All these things can be a massive headache that an international marketer is going to have to look into before being able to fully participate in the global scale. One difference we looked at was Europeans taking privacy very, very seriously. And we talked about GDPR. We talked about the new laws that just passed. Sorry, so here we go. I don't want to get ahead of myself. GDPR, which was 2018, and that's if you ever go to the website and you see the thing at the bottom of the screen where it says that, do you accept the cookies? That's all part of GDPR. And there's a great video that goes into depth on that. I highly recommend you watch that in the PowerPoint. And then Digital Services Act, right? What is the problem here? And digital services, basically wanting to look at digital privacy, free speech, and also there's the Digital Markets Act. A lot of things are being tied into this. It's massive legislation, and it can definitely affect a lot of American big tech companies wanting to make the playing field a bit more level for smaller businesses. I've got some great videos in here. Here's the EU's Digital Market Act, kind of breaking that down from an EU perspective, and then jumping into a CNBC reaction, when they're talking about Apple's App Store, and it's interesting to see how these different countries view this. Now, one thing that's really interesting and quite hilarious is John Oliver. He very timely talks about the data that's on that goes into on a website. When we visit a website, the amount of data they have, and so he actually did this great thing where they created some advertisements or websites on that targeted Capitol Hill with titles like "Marriage Shouldn't Be a Prison," "Can You Vote Twice?" and "Do You Want to Read Ted Cruz Erotic Fan Fiction?" And it was fascinating that 3 IP addresses from within the Capitol actually clicked on these, and he agreed not to reveal who that was, but it was quite simply a great instance of knowing how privacy can be taken advantage of by doing things. And so a lot of the legislation coming out of EU might be right on point, and I think John Oliver did a great job of showing it to us in a very hilarious way, but also definitely showing these politicians, do you really want companies to have that sort of access to your information? So, definitely it takes due diligence if you're going to operate outside of the USA. Whether we're talking about contracts, whether we're talking about intellectual property, whether we're talking about the internet, the World Wide Web, counterfeit, piracy, all these different things that we talked about in this chapter. So here, a group project, your team governs its own country. What kind of commercials do you not allow during children's programming? Right. This might be a great way to think about what sort of restrictions, if you were the master of your domain, so to speak, you have your small government, what sort of rules would you put in place to protect children and to protect, other things, and also still allow companies to be competitive? So it's a great group project. And then, we want to know, did people's answers different? How might countries' differences affect their own marketing, right? We also want to look at product comparison. So we're all familiar with this commercial that you'll see where 2 tissues try to clean up the puddle. And so the way we talk about product comparison is interesting because in USA, this idea of puffery, A-OK, right? You can totally do that. When you talk about it in Germany, the competitor can actually take you to court to prove your claim. And in Canada, all claims have to be examined in order to not mislead consumers in advance. So that's pretty interesting here. When you talk about green marketing, basically what we're talking about here with green marketing and the way that different countries look at this, what legal requirements are involved, social responsibility, considering that we're serving the firm, the customer, and the environment. Minimizing I cannot speak, minimizing our ecological impact, design for a better environment. So we see a lot of these things that talk about traditional marketing, what's driving it, and then how that's changed with green marketing. In your government, there's another group discussion here. You discover a company is positioning products and services as having environmental benefits, but they don't actually exist, right? What do you do? How does your government handle that? Did we find similarity or differences in those answers that the group came up with? So when we talk about green marketing strategies, we're really talking about three things, and let's just zoom in. We're talking about green design, positioning the product, disposing of the product, logistics. So you talk about a country like Germany that has very specific things that have to happen to a product's packaging. It has to be able to be bought back or be processed in a certain way. These countries can have very strong ideas about what that should be, and definitely worth noting if you're going to be participating in the markets elsewhere. Do we expect countries to have similar policies in green marketing? Right? I think it'd be hard to believe that would be the case. It'd be hard to believe that they'd have similar policies, right? We expect them to be different, just as they are in everything else. So here is a chart: environmental policies, whole economy, and 6 being the most stringent. Right, and so we see the differences, the changes that have occurred in 2012. Not the most recent data, but this was something that I was able to pull in. Really interesting, and we see that not a whole lot of change has happened in, say, some place like Greece. We talk about Denmark. Oh my gosh, wow! And Denmark was certainly leading in 1990, and certainly leading in 2012. So some countries are definitely taking it more seriously than others. So as an international marketer, you'd want to research the laws on packaging and more. I think that kind of goes without saying, but you really do need to do your due diligence, as the previous slide suggested, to understand what's going to be expected of you when operating in this country. Antitrust laws, these are big ones. I'm going to take a sip of water, just give me a sec. Antitrust laws are a big one. Antitrust, monopoly, right? We don't want to have all the companies in one space or all the things in one space being owned by one company. I always want to bring in current things. So here it is in Brussels, actually. Apple's is facing antitrust, and this has to do with Apple Pay. We did see earlier CNBC mentioning Apple Pay by the Digital Markets Act. So Digital Services Act as well. So we believe that clearly something like this is maybe what's leading to this new legislation, brave, bold legislation from the EU, and definitely here's an antitrust thing going against Apple Pay, wanting them to let other vendors have access to that software. And here it is, kind of breaks down what exactly is going on with Apple Pay. I'll let you take a closer look here. Basically, Apple Pay has been under EU scrutiny for a while, and they just think that Apple is just too big, too powerful, and they want to see changes, to Apple allowing third-party payment systems to use it. And so anyway, so it's definitely some different interesting things, and they do reference the Digital Markets Act as well. So interesting stuff for sure. We see here U.S. laws apply to the U.S. companies operating outside the United States. This is called objective theory of jurisdiction. So you've got U.S. companies that are operating in Italy, U.S. companies that are operating in Japan, U.S. companies that are operating in China, all being subjected to the United States laws, objective theory of jurisdiction. And so Stericycle, another recent thing, they're being charged with bribery in Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. Hundreds of bribe payments were made. This falls under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and definitely something that we'll be keeping an eye on. Charged with bribery scheme and set to pay $84 million by that Foreign Corruption Protection Act. Another thing, when we talk about boycotting, Ben and Jerry's is in the news with this lawsuit. I'll zoom in on this, let you take a look here. So you can see here that they're basically saying this company, American Qualities Products, is not happy because Ben and Jerry's is not renewing their contract, and they're saying that's because Ben and Jerry's was telling them that they need to do some illegal conduct. Now, Ben and Jerry's is owned by Unilever. And that they're basically that Unilever's unlawfully going to terminate the contract based on this idea of boycotting Israel. Right? So, a U.S. company can't just participate in some unauthorized foreign boycott. That's just not the way things operate under U.S. law. And they would have to report any request to participate in a boycott as well. So maybe this is exactly what happened in the Ben and Jerry's story. And we also can't forget the Cuban pajamas, right? Those Canadians, they love their Cuban pajamas. So, this is basically a foreign government thinking that America is overstepping its borders when it comes to commerce. Those are the sort of things. Now when we talk about who oversees U.S. commerce, you run into U.S. Commercial Services, and they fall under Department of Commerce, and some of the things that they do here, they're promoting the idea of exporting U.S. goods and services outside of the United States. Actually, we work with them in regards to exporting education. I'm on a council there through the U.S. Commercial Services, looking out for the exportation of education from the U.S. And they represent U.S. business interests internationally, and they're also really great at finding you qualified international partners. I actually was actually looking at them because I wanted to advertise Louisiana Tech in the Bahamas. And they actually connected me to an advertising company, and we discussed different options that we could look at, rates that they would be charged. And it was actually a really great experience working with them and being connected with them. So very cool. Then you have the Department of Commerce, Bureau of Industry and Security. This is kind of like the police of the Department of Commerce. They basically enforce these restrictions. When we talk about export control, so export control was basically set up in order to halt technology and things like that being shared with communist countries. And that slowed down a lot with the end of the Cold War. These are some of the areas that we look at when we talk about what is in export control activities, whether that's foreign visitors to the U.S., foreign travel, shipping, equipment information, or the hiring of foreign nationals. Right here, you can see that we're not the only one that deals with this. Here's China tightening export controls on dual-use technology. What that means is that a technology has a military use and a commercial use, and they're basically saying that Chinese technology, needs to be limited. There needs to be some control over the export of those dual-use technologies. So, if you are interested in exporting, responsibility lies on you, right? And this falls under the Export Administration Regulations, or the EAR, and it's up to the exporter to make sure that they've got the proper license. There's a validated export license for things that are more sensitive, that might be close to the line here in export control. So that responsibility falls on you. And that's the end of Chapter 7. So I hope this was helpful. Student, that you needed this. I hope you got the help you need. I'm really here to help y'all. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to me. Call me on phone. My number is on the syllabus. Send me an email. Come by the office and visit. I'm always happy to help. And cheers, y'all. Be good.